Hi, I'm Karen. We're here at Montavilla Sewing Center, and today we're talking about the Brother BQ950. In this video, I'm going to show you the settings menu. Now, the settings button is this one right over here. When you push this one, it gives you these 8 pages of different settings. Now, you can also push the clear button to get back out of settings. So I'm going to go here. And this first line here has to do with when you're doing lettering and stitch combinations. So if you had a really long line of stitching, you could use these arrows down here. Right now, I don't have anything that I've programmed in here, so it gives me that little quick beep. But if I did, you'd see that right up there. Then down here, and you push these up or down arrows to move to the different lines. Here we have the needle position. So that means when you're done sewing and the machine rolls to a stop, at this point, the needle will be up. If I push this button here, the needle will be down, which is a convenient thing to have for certain applications like quilting or whatever, so that your needle is down in your fabric. You can lift up your presser foot, take a look at your stitches, and then turn it back and put your presser foot back down, and you haven't lost your place. So that's a nice feature to have. So you can, that's really a preference there. Then this one here, if you push this and turn it on, you could do twin needle sewing. Twin needle sewing looks like this. And what that does is it protects the machine from having too wide of stitches, like too wide of a zigzag or some of these other stitches that you could do. So when you have twin needle, it sets it for that, sets the machine for that. I'm going to turn that off for now. Now go down to the next one, width control. Now this is your speed slider, but if I turn this on, I could do a zigzag and taper it really nicely and smoothly, just like that. That's what width control would do. I would do that as I'm sewing. Now, when you're done doing this, make sure you go back into settings and turn that back off again. Because if you don't, it'll change your needle position even for straight stitching. So make sure that when you're done, turn it off. Okay. Initial position, now this is different than the needle position as far as up or down. It's the side to side. So initial position is about when you first turn on your machine, are you going to get the center needle position, like stitch number 3 or 4, or are you going to get the left side needle position, which is either 1 or 2? Now I like the 1 or 2 because that way the needle position lines up with my 5/8 inch seam allowance line here and here, and I'll get a nice 5/8 inch seam allowance with the needle in the left position. Let's go down here, elongation. Now that's kind of a fun one. You can take a stitch and make it longer but maintain the same stitch density. So that's what the elongation is about. Again, we don't have anything here because we haven't chosen a stitch. So a lot of these settings have to do with you choose a stitch first, then you go into settings and change what you want to do. Okay, thread density. Let's go down to this one. Now, if you look carefully at this one, you can kind of see how the stitches are more satin looking on this one than on this one. The idea of the thread density is a little bit different than elongation in terms of that you're not making the motif longer, you're keeping it the same length, you're just keeping those stitches so there's more stitches in the motif. That's what thread density has to do with. If you're using a fine thread like a rayon thread and you want to really get that sheen, get those stitches close together, that's a perfect one for that. If, on the other hand, you're using a thicker thread, say like some of your 12-weight threads, then you might want to have less stitch density so that the stitches are a little bit further apart because the thread itself will fill in those gaps. Character spacing. Now that has to do with if you look carefully here, put this guy here. The stitches, the letters up here are a little closer together down here than they are up here. So that's what character spacing has to do with. It just changes how long a word is and how far apart the letters are. So go down to here. Size selection, that would be like over here. So you can have the same letter, but a smaller size. So you could turn that on or off with this here. Now, right now, I don't have any letters there that I've already programmed in, so that's why it didn't allow me to do that. Now, fine vertical adjustment and fine horizontal adjustment has to do with if you're sewing a decorative stitch and say because of the thickness of your fabric or maybe the layers that you're using, it's a little bit out of sync, it doesn't quite match up like it should, you would use fine adjustment. And the way you would do that, I'm going to get out of this for a second. We want to use stitch number 36 here in this area where it says 1 right there. So I'm going to type in 36. That's going to give that stitch right there. Then I'd go back into settings. You can see there it is right there. I'm going to page ahead. There we go. Whoops, back. There we go. Then I can change that to make it maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, stitch it out, see which way I need to change things until I get it to look like this right here. Then once I have that done, those settings are saved in the machine, and then I can go ahead and stitch any of my other stitches out, and that helps fix any of that misalignment. So I'm going to put these back to default right now. They're not on default. When you see no frame around it, that's not default. So I'm going to go back here. So there's got, not a frame, but it's got 0, 0. I'm going to go up, put that back down to 0, 0. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and presser foot pressure. So instead of having like a dial over here that regulates how tightly the presser foot pushes against the fabric, you have this in settings here, and you can change that with the arrows. Here we have that little beep that we hear whenever you make a change, or the little quick beep that you hear when it says you can't make that change. That you can turn on or off using these arrows. Whenever you see these arrows up here, that means use these arrows down here to turn it on or off. The light, some people would rather have a lamp or something rather than this light, or maybe they're sewing in front of the window and don't need the light, so you can turn that on or off. The brightness has to do with the brightness of this screen here. And then here is reinforcement priority. That if you turn it on, it makes sure that when you do a reinforcement stitch at the end of your stitch, it's not a back stitch, it's actually a reinforcement, the locking in place stitch. Input sensitivity, that's nice. You can adjust that depending on how well this screen responds to your fingers. Now, I want to tell you, use your fingers on this, not a stylus. This is meant for finger pressure, not for like a pointy stylus. And down here we have language selection. I prefer English, so that's what we have. But if I had chosen something like Spanish, these up here, all of these and all the other writing would be in Spanish, for instance. Okay, this is your software version. It just tells, like, the technicians or whoever what software version you have. And then, of course, it gets back into the beginning. Now, to get out of settings again, just push cancel, and there you go. Now, if I wanted to get out of that, I would push cancel again, and that just eliminates that. To get back into regular sewing, there we go. So that's settings on your machine. There's a lot you can do, as you can see. If you found this video to be helpful, give us a thumbs up. And if you have comments or questions, you can leave those in the area down below. So we have lots of other videos on this machine and on other machines here on our Montavilla YouTube channel. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Bye.